Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are jumping straight into some really complex and, frankly, highly aggressive source material today.
Yeah.
It's excerpts from a song and an accompanying, well, manifesto, I guess, titled Holler Serpent, Matriarchy's Betrayal.
Yeah, this isn't your standard political piece at all. The sources we got are very charged. It's like a piece of cultural commentary designed to provoke. The author is really upfront in the notes about wanting to force what they call a shocking visualization of the mass depth of the matriarchy's betrayal. It pulls together some really radical ideas about gender, societal collapse, and specific conspiracy theories. It's dense stuff. Visceral.
Absolutely. So our mission here, just to be clear up front, is to navigate this material impartially. We're treating it as a window into a very specific and, yes, aggressive worldview that a listener shared. We're going to unpack the rhetoric, look at the metaphors, try to understand the claims from within their own logic. But importantly, we are not endorsing any of these viewpoints, just analyzing the text provided. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. So to get a handle on the intensity, you really have to start with how the source defines the core problem. This betrayal, it's described as having mass depth, huge scale. It's presented as like a total collapse, morally, socially, rejecting what the author sees as the absolute foundations. Things like Jesus, ancestry, biology, even race, and, future generations. It basically frames right now as this catastrophic failure, morally and biologically.
And the text gives this failure a face, doesn't it? Through some really dark, almost mythological imagery in the song lyrics. The main villain is this holler serpent. It's not just an idea. It's pictured as a creature lurking with a serpent's glow. What jumped out at me was how it's all about deception. This thing offers a grin, but it's venom in disguise. And it's explicitly compared to a predator, like a black widow feasting to eat the devil's red eyes. Very potent imagery.
And that kind of intense, visceral imagery connects straight into the main way the author wants you to understand this crisis. They don't just stick to political language, they actually reach for cinematic body horror, specifically name-dropping John Carpenter's 1982 film, The Thing.
Right, The Thing,
right.
Which is all about, well, biological horror, isn't it? An alien infection that mimics people perfectly so you can't tell who's human and who's corrupted.
Yeah.
Why that film? Why is that the reference point here?
Well, I think it's about the nature of the enemy being hidden, being inside. The author makes this really interesting point, suggesting that the thing monster, the one that corrupts and assimilates, would, in a weird way at least, be one with it. The implication seems to be that the betrayal they see today is somehow messier, less coherent, and maybe even worse than being assimilated by an alien. It suggests the problem isn't just, say, a bad policy change. It's a fundamental breakdown. Biological, spiritual.
Okay. And that idea that there's this hidden, grotesque reality underneath the surface that gets reinforced with the second Carpenter reference, right? They live. The source material actually includes this significant picture. It looks like something out of The Thing, very grotesque, and says you need to see it like you're wearing the special glasses from They Live.
Yes. And that's like the key to unlocking the author's whole perspective. Those glasses in They Live, they strip away the illusion, don't they? They reveal the everyday world is actually run by these hidden messages and aliens in disguise. So for this author, the unsettling truth isn't just some secret political agenda. It's that the very people and systems you interact with daily are in some way literally transmutated or manipulated. And you need this cognitive tool, the red pill, essentially, to actually perceive reality correctly.
Which means, from their point of view, if you don't agree, it's not a difference of opinion. It's
well,
it's a failure to see. You just haven't put the glasses on.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the author views this societal conflict through the lens of body horror and hidden reality, not merely political dispute. And framing it that way, well, it sort of justifies the extreme language and reaction that comes next.
Okay, so we've got the horror aesthetic established. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the specific actions. What does the text accuse this serpent figure and the fraudulent hags of actually doing? The accusations cover a lot of ground, starting with, well, money.
Yeah.
Economic warfare.
Yeah, the source gets pretty specific on the financial side. It claims the women targeted are siphoning your taxes for some USAID blast. So the idea is deliberate mismanagement, sending money overseas while causing economic carnage back home.
And then there's the cultural and political angle. Media manipulation, immigration. The text talks about propaganda clowns calling you a bigot for kicks and accuses them of basically inviting barbarians to burn down the sticks. And the figure behind it all is just labeled the Marxist mimic. Very blunt.
But what's really crucial, I think, is how quickly it moves from that finance politics into biology and the family unit itself. The text literally accuses this group of twisting cells to her own, turning kids into traitors, and denying men a legitimate bloodline. But, and this is key, claiming it's all being done under the banner of justice for all. It just
Yeah.
completely blurs the line between social policy and, like, biological attack.
And the language used about the women targeted,
Hmm.
it's relentless throughout the whole song. It's
Yeah.
not just disagreeing, it's deeply personal, aggressive stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It's clearly designed to dehumanize, to paint the opposition as chaotic, even biologically flawed. You see phrases repeated like Karens keep spewing lies, and then there are these incredibly crude, really derogatory anatomical insults, plus the constant term fraudulent hags on a full frontal attack. It's purposeful language, right? It turns the opponent into something repulsive, something that justifies this total war footing.
It also points to a real battle over traditional roles, doesn't it? The text complains that this group mocks male sacrifice, sneering at your old scars, your granddaddy's fight.
Yeah.
And then, kind of ironically, things like working and raising kids get framed not as contribution, but as some kind of feminist sin if they're done outside this very specific moral code the author lays out.
And ultimately, the source boils down this huge, complex societal mess into failing just two simple rules. It states it very clearly. Two rules, so simple, but they can't comply, love Jesus, don't whore, yet they'd rather just die. So doing that, it shifts the entire argument, political, cultural, everything, into just a matter of individual spiritual failure. It simplifies everything down to that.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because up to now, the text is all aggression, right? It's visceral. It defines the situation as this immediate existential threat. You need the red pill to see it now. So you'd expect the solution, the strategy for men in this view to be, I don't know, a call to arms,
Yeah.
direct action.
Yeah, given all the horror talk, you'd think confrontation, wouldn't you? But the strategy proposed is, well, honestly, kind of surprising. It's about withdrawal, patience, almost passive resistance in a way. The instruction for men is basically sitting it out, to deliberately let the accused women fight their own war, let them scream till their lungs give a final shout.
Wow, that's quite a contrast. All this explosive, violent language describing what sounds like an apocalypse, but the solution is wait. Just wait for it to collapse.
It suggests maybe a deep feeling of being powerless in the moment, but combined with this absolute certainty about winning in the long run. Biologically, the reason given for this patience is explicitly biological. The source claims men hold the trump card, our seeds built to last. So the plan is literally just to endure the chaos until, as it puts it, a fresh crop of souls, untainted, brand new, can emerge and sort of replace the current society.
So the whole strategy relies on believing the current breakdown is just fundamentally unsustainable and that biology, maybe guided by God, will eventually reset things if men just step back.
Exactly. It swaps out, physical fighting for biological and spiritual staying power. And that brings us to the final, really fascinating paradox in this whole manifesto. Because despite all the intense violence, the aggression, the frankly hatred expressed in nearly every line, the author ends by asserting that the only redeemer is Jesus.
Right. And they actually finish the whole thing with two Christian memes. Memes focused entirely on forgiveness and grace. One is about the devil not being able to see people clean by grace, and the other asks, how's unforgiveness working out down in hell? It's quite a pivot.
It really is. It acts like a kind of moral safety valve for the whole document, doesn't it?
Right.
It suggests that all this analysis, this deep dive into betrayal, is just the necessary, maybe painful, red pill step.
Yeah.
Once you accept the reality of the holler serpent, the end goal isn't permanent rage. It's submitting to this religious solution, forgiveness, which conveniently also guarantees their side's ultimate victory.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author explicitly frames this song, this text, as finishing the journey that John Carpenter's film started. They actually say their work has crossed the finish line of that red pill process, bringing together the body horror of The Thing and the hidden control of They Live. So what does this all mean?
Well, I think this text is a really pertinent example of how these extreme conspiratorial worldviews get built and packaged. It's incredibly detailed in its own way, very visceral. It uses that aggressive language throughout. What's fascinating here is by fusing the political complaints with these other frameworks, biological determinism, cinematic horror, and ultimately a specific religious interpretation, the author creates this whole self-contained system. It explains everything they see as wrong with society, and names the villain, gives you that shocking visual, and then promises this passive but totally inevitable victory through endurance and divine will.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about. Here's a final thought for you to consider. If the author insists their work completes this red pill awakening, a journey they see as starting with films like The Thing and They Live, films that relied completely on, grotesque transformation and shocking reveals to force awareness, what does that tell us? What does it say about the perceived stakes and maybe the level of shock needed for someone to actually accept this kind of worldview, something to mull over until our next deep dive?